Welcome to the AtlantECO podcast, where we talk about the science behind the AtlantECO project, the Atlantic Ocean, and the human adventures experienced along the way. Here, we have conversations with guests from around the world who work together so that we can better understand, manage, and protect the ocean. So let's embark on the journey of AtlantECO and discover the world that lies above and beneath the surface of the beautiful Atlantic Ocean. Today's conversation is about the marine microbiome, where we discuss all about the invisible life that lies beneath the surface of the ocean with our guest, Hugo Sarmento. Hi, Hugo, and welcome to the podcast.
Hi, Eloise. Thanks for the invitation. It's a great pleasure to be here with you to talk a little bit about the ocean microbiome.
So, Hugo, before you tell us more about this wonderful microscopic world in our oceans, can you tell us about yourself, what your journey has been leading to where you are now and what you're doing?
So I'm Portuguese. I was born in Portugal, a country that has a lot of links with the ocean. Then I did my PhD in Belgium. I started working with the plankton. I saw the plankton for the first time. And I started with the freshwaters. So I had the opportunity to work in the African Great Lakes. And what I saw there is that the plankton of these lakes is very similar to the ocean plankton, because the lakes are so big that they are considered freshwater oceans. Let's put it like that. So this put me in contact with people from oceanography. I had to use oceanography tools to study the East African lakes plankton. And I ended up making a postdoc in Barcelona in the Oceanographic Institute. And at that moment, a big project was in its early beginnings was the Tario Oceans project. It was a crazy project to circumnavigate or to make the tour of the world in a sailing boat to do research, to study the plankton. And I was there at the right time and the right moments, and went on board on the first leg of the Tario Ocean circumnavigation cruise. And the adventure, it was a big adventure. And here we are now studying the microbes of the ocean.
Great. So you've been with the team from the onset and for a long time now.
Yeah, it was 2009.
And how did you get involved in AtlantECO, in the project itself?
So during Tario Oceans, we already got a big team of people from different spectra working in different perspectives of the plankton. In the meanwhile, I came to Brazil. I am now a professor in the University of São Carlos, Federal University of São Carlos. And I kept contact with people from the Tario Oceans team. And when we start talking and thinking about making an all-Atlantic project that could cover also the South Atlantic, I was lucky I was again in the right position at the right time. I was already in Brazil. So I was also invited to participate in this nice project.
That's great. And is there anything specific that inspired you to study into the marine sciences, or that drew you to the ocean in general?
Yeah, I mean, culturally, in Portugal, we are very close to the ocean. I was born by the sea. I lived all my life by the sea, nearly. We are deep into this ocean culture. And then it was a little bit of also the spirit of exploration, of navigation that drove me to Africa the first time. First out of Portugal to Belgium for the PhD, and then to Africa, and then to projects like Tario Oceans to sail far away to explore new worlds.
That sounds exciting.
Yeah.
So today we're here to talk about microbiomes. Could you explain what it is and why it is important that we study microbiome and what role they play in the ocean?
Not many people are aware that approximately half of the oxygen that is produced in our planet is produced in the ocean. Usually people think about the lungs of the planet are the tropical forests and trees and so on. But actually, half of the oxygen comes from microbes in the ocean. This oxygen production is carried out by phytoplankton. It's a part of the microbiome because we have also microorganisms associated to them. So the microbiome is the group of microorganisms that live in the ocean and do essential services for humanity, such as oxygen production. The ocean also is a carbon sink, so it absorbs about 1/4 of the CO2 emissions to the atmosphere that we do every year due to fossil fuel combustion, for example. The ocean provides food as well, and the basis of the food web is the microbiome, because the small organisms are eaten by bigger organisms, that is called the zooplankton, and then the smaller fish eat the zooplankton, and then the big fish eats the small fish, and so on and so on. So the microbiomes are essential for humans. They make the link between the climates and the fisheries, for example. And how does it happen? So as I said, in the forests, the plants bring the nutrients from the soil to the leaves to make photosynthesis. It doesn't happen like that in the ocean. In the ocean, the microbes are carried with currents. And sometimes in some particular points of the ocean, some currents bring nutrients from the bottom of the ocean to the surface where there is light, and there photosynthesis can happen. So that is the link between the climate and the food production. The winds carry makes the water of the ocean move. The nutrients comes to the surface, the phytoplankton grow, and then the food chain starts.
And I guess a couple of questions to go maybe a little bit more specifically about AtlantECO and to understand how we study microbiome in AtlantECO.
Yeah, the fact that these microbes are small, we cannot see them in the naked eye. We need microscopes, we need always some technological instruments to observe them. It's a challenge. And another feature is that they are very similar to each other, especially small bacteria. They are all round, all the same shape, but they are actually very different. There is more difference between two random bacteria in the ocean than an elephant and a tree, for example. So the phylogenetic diversity of bacteria is much, much larger than all animals and plants in the tree of life. Okay, if we see a tree of life, it would be 98% bacteria, and just a small branch would have all the animals and plants of the planet. But they look the same. They are both they are small spheres. So how can we differentiate them? How can we identify them? We use DNA sequencing. Okay, so again, we need a very new technological instrument to sequence the DNA of the microbiome and to be able to identify these microorganisms and to know what they are doing, we access their genes to know what they can do and what they are actually doing in the ocean. This is very new. 20 years ago, we didn't even know how many species of microorganisms were in the sea. We could not sequence other than the top 10 to 20 most abundant microorganisms in a sample. Now we know there are maybe 3 to 10,000 species in a sample of microorganisms in any ocean in the world. So we got big advances in the last decades on this field. Actually, just to complement, after these new technologies came out, there was the need of the governments and the countries to explore this whole new world of microbial genes in the ocean, because there is a lot of potential to biotechnology, to medicines, to food, to industry. So there's a lot of potential to develop things with the genes that are in the ocean microbiome.
And I guess that is one of the use that we could make of the knowledge that we gain in AtlantECO. But maybe you can tell us about what else that knowledge can be used for.
So there's a lot of applications, as I said, a lot of potential uses of the genes of the microbes of the oceans. It's also very important to forecast how the ocean is going to be in 50 years, in 100 years. It will be warmer, that's for sure. There's climate changes ongoing now. We are already observing some effects of those climatic changes. Also, when we increase the CO2 in the atmosphere, simply by diffusion, it will increase the concentration of CO2 in the ocean, and this makes the ocean becomes more acid. So there is the ocean acidification, and this will have can have a huge impact in those ecosystem services, as carbon sink, as food production, as oxygen production. We need to evaluate how these changes can affect those services. So AtlantECO we'll gather all the data available in the Atlantic. We'll put that in a big computer. We make models, and we'll predict what happened in 50 years or 100 years with expectations of changes in the ocean. So that is very important too. Another thing that we are doing, the AtlantECO is organized in 3 hubs. There is Europe, South America, and South Africa, the African continent, actually. So we are, with the AtlantECO project, we have several cruises in the South Atlantic that is much less explored than the North Atlantic. And we are putting students, postdocs, PhD students, master students on board of these cruises, together with the European researchers, to share this knowledge, so they can learn protocols and these new techniques that are less accessible in the Southern Hemisphere. That is another important aspect of AtlantECO, is to transfer that technology to the South and bring this knowledge to our students as well. And also to the public, to communicate with the public and bring to the society the services that are provided by the ocean that many people are not aware of.
Yeah, and that's also what we're trying to do here with the podcast, sharing that knowledge, inspiring people and making them want to know more about the ocean and the life within it. So Hugo, thank you so much for your time and your insight today. For sure, we will cover the microbiome in future episodes of the podcast to see what we have discovered in the project and learn more about the wonderful life in the ocean. The World Microbiome Day will be on June the 27th, and as AtlantECO, we'll be sharing some of the wonderful pictures and facts about some of our favourite organisms. So to our listeners, make sure to follow AtlantECO on our social media to discover those microbiomes. And to Hugo, maybe a final question. If you had to describe or choose your favorite microbiome or your favorite organism, which one would it be and why?
Oh, that's not an easy one. I have to think. There's one bacteria that is called... Can I use weird names?
Yeah, go on.
There is one bacteria called Microbia.
Right.
I like the name. I never saw it, but we have DNA sequences in our computers.
Can we hope to maybe find that in the Atlantic?
Yeah,
or?
Sure. You find it in every sample.
Thank you very much, Hugo, and I'm sure we'll talk again about microbiomes on the podcast.
Thank you for the opportunity again, and see you next time.
We hope that you've enjoyed today's episode and look forward to seeing you next time. You can follow the AtlantECO project on our website on www.atlanteco.eu, and you can also find us on Twitter, Instagram and Facebook. All the links and information on the project and on today's episode is in the show notes.